A few months ago, I took a road trip through the snowy mountains. I thought the fresh air would clear my head after my breakup. I packed my photography gear and set out, hoping to capture some beautiful landscapes. The roads were winding and remote. Tall, dark pines lined the way, getting thicker as I drove. I chose a lesser-known route. I felt free as the sights of civilization faded away. I pulled into a small clearing for my first night and set up camp. The peace around me was great, but then something weird happened. Around midnight, I heard faint music. It drifted through the stillness of the night. The melody was strangely beautiful, but it made me feel uneasy. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. I told myself it was nothing and crawled into my tent. I tried to sleep but kept hearing it just outside. The next day, I went exploring with my camera. I walked for miles, snapping pictures. After a while, I found an abandoned cabin, half buried in snow. I was curious, so I went inside. It was dark and smelled damp. My stomach sank as I looked around. The walls had old photographs of people I didn't know. Some had strange shapes lurking in the background. My heart raced. Who were these people? Why were they here? That night, I heard the music again. This time it was mixed with whispers. It seemed to call my name. I shook my head, trying to convince myself I was just paranoid. I stepped outside for some fresh air. The night felt colder. My breath came out in little clouds. I squinted into the dark and saw shadowy figures darting between the trees. They moved quickly, almost like they were playing. Maybe they are just animals, I thought, trying to calm myself. But my heart was pounding hard. I felt a pull to go deeper into the woods, but something stopped me. I turned to head back to my camp. That's when I thought I heard my name whispered again. It sent chills down my spine. I knew I had to leave. As I packed up to leave the next morning, unease hung over me. I felt like I wasn't alone. I didn't know what to think. Those shadows and whispers haunted me. Was it all in my head? Or was something out there watching me? I couldn't figure it out. Then I saw a figure standing at the edge of the clearing. It didn't move. I froze, unable to look away. The air felt heavy, and all I could think was, who or what was it? My heart raced. I knew I shouldn't be there. I grabbed my gear and got in my car as fast as I could. I didn't look back. I still think about that trip. I wonder what I saw and heard. I wonder if I'll ever know. It's a mystery I can't shake off. I drove for hours, the sun low on the horizon, casting eerie shadows across the snow-covered ground. I turned the radio up, hoping to drown out the memories of the night before. Every turn in the road felt like a challenge now. My mind raced with questions about what I had seen. The figure at the edge of the clearing, it didn't seem human. When my phone pinged with a new message, I almost jumped in my seat. It was a text from my friend Sarah. "Hey, how was your trip? You still out in the woods?" I hesitated to reply. I couldn't share what happened, it sounded crazy. So I typed back something vague. "It's been nice, but I'm heading home soon." I stopped at a small diner I had passed earlier. The low hum of conversation felt comforting, a mix of laughter and clatter. I ordered coffee and sat in a booth by the window. The walls were lined with pictures of the mountains, but none looked like the cabin I had found. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I glanced up, meeting the eyes of the waitress. She didn't smile. Her gaze drifted past me, unfocused, like she was seeing something I couldn't. As I finished the coffee, a man at the counter spoke up. "You visiting from out of town?" he asked, a hint of curiosity in his voice. I nodded, but I could sense his intensity. "Be careful out there. Those woods aren't what they seem," he warned. My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" He looked down, shaking his head. There are things in those woods. Things that shouldn't be there. Folks around here don't like to talk about it." My heart raced again. "Like what?" I pushed, desperate for more information. He glanced around, then lowered his voice. Just listen to the whispers. They'll lead you somewhere you don't want to go. I'll keep that in mind, I said, though my pulse quickened at his words. I tried to laugh it off, but the unease returned. After I left the diner, I drove toward a scenic overlook. The view was breathtaking, but it felt different this time. I stepped out of my car and took a few photographs, but something in the air felt charged, almost static. I turned my back to the view, scanning the trees. They loomed higher than before, their shadows stretching long. That's when I noticed something on the ground, a small, glimmering object half buried in the snow. I approached cautiously. It was an old locket, tarnished and cold. I picked it up, brushing off the snow. A chill ran down my spine. Inside was a photograph, 2 young girls, identical twins with bright smiles. But standing behind them, half obscured, was a dark figure. It looked similar to the one I had seen. My stomach twisted. What was this doing here? Had someone else come this way before me? I flipped the locket over, and there was an inscription. My breath caught as I read the words, "Forever lost, but never forgotten." I shoved it into my pocket as the whispers from last night echoed in my head. Something deep inside me knew I needed to leave this place. I got into my car, starting the engine and glancing in the rearview mirror. Just for a moment, I thought I saw the figure again, standing in the distance, watching me as I drove away. The weight of the locket pressed against my leg. What was its story? My heart raced again. Whatever mystery I had tangled myself in was far from over. I could feel it calling me back. I drove for a while, trying to shake off the creeping chill that had settled into my bones. The road was empty, but my mind was full of the unknown. The locket weighed heavily in my pocket, its presence amplifying my anxiety. I took a deep breath, trying to focus on the drive, but the words of the diner man echoed in my ears. Things that shouldn't be there. As I navigated the winding road, I spotted a bend ahead. I slowed down, remembering how the snow had piled up on the edges. My eyes darted toward the trees, scanning for anything out of the ordinary. That's when I noticed a flash of movement between the trunks. I stopped the car and sat frozen for a moment, pulse racing. It was over in a blink. Whatever it was, it vanished into the woods. My heart pounded, but my curiosity overpowered my fear. I stepped out of the car, the cold air sharp against my skin. I walked toward where I'd seen the movement, careful with each step, careful not to disturb the silence. Then I heard it, a faint whispering coming from deeper in the woods. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I strained to listen, but the words swirled into incoherence. Whatever was out there, it seemed to call to me, urging me to come closer. No, I thought, I shouldn't. But I took another step forward, the urge too strong. The locket felt hot against my leg, pulsing with a strange energy. I glanced back at the car, the thought of safety tugging at me. But the whispers intensified, drawing me in. I darted back to my car, suddenly feeling exposed, like I was being hunted. I jumped in and slammed the door, locking it. My hands trembled as I fumbled for my phone, but it was dead. Great, I muttered to myself, frustration mixing with fear. Then I noticed something outside my window. A figure, cloaked in shadows, standing at the edge of the trees. It was too far to see clearly, but I could feel its gaze boring into me. I remembered the photo from the locket. What if this figure was linked to the twins? Just as I started the engine, the figure took a step forward. Fear gripped me. I backed out of the small clearing, my tires crunching on the snow. I couldn't lose sight of it, whatever it was. I turned, eyes glued to the figure in the rearview mirror, and saw it raise a hand. Then it beckoned. Panic surged through me as I stepped on the gas. I tore down the road, my breath shallow. I had to get away. I glanced back one last time and saw the figure standing still, watching as I fled. The whispers faded with the distance, but I knew they wouldn't be gone for long. I had to get home. But home felt far away, and the locket in my pocket whispered secrets that begged to be uncovered. That night, if I thought the woods were hazardous, the truth was even more unsettling. I didn't just need to find answers. I needed to survive whatever had stirred in the dark. The next morning, I awoke in a haze, the sun barely cutting through the frost on my window. The events from last night felt like a bad dream. I tried to shake them off, but the unease sat heavy in my gut. I needed to do something productive, to feel in control. I slipped into my jacket and grabbed the locket from the bedside. The intricate design felt strangely comforting against my palm. The urgency to learn more about it gnawed at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was somehow tied to the figure in the woods, and to the twins that the diner man spoke of. After breakfast, I decided to head back to the diner. Maybe I could gather more information about the area, or whatever the locket might signify. As I drove, the landscape transformed. The trees looked darker, taller, as if they were hiding secrets between their branches. I shuddered and turned up the heat, trying to ward off the chill that crept in with the memory of the figure. When I entered the diner, the familiar bell jingled overhead. The place was different in the daylight. The walls were lined with old photographs and dusty knickknacks that whispered of lives lived long ago. A few patrons sat at booths, sipping coffee, but I noticed the same man behind the counter, the diner man. His eyes locked onto mine as I approached. "Back again, huh?" he asked, wiping his hands on a dish towel. There was a glimmer of recognition in his eyes, but also something else, something that made my heart race. "I wanted to ask about the locket," I said, pulling it from my pocket. "I need to know what it means." His expression shifted, and the air thickened with tension. "Where did you get that?" he asked, leaning forward. I hesitated. It belonged to someone I found. He regarded me closely as if weighing whether to continue. "You're not the first to find it. It's connected to the town's history. The twins who lived here, Evelyn and Clara, they disappeared years ago. A tragedy." The name struck me. I remembered the faces in the photographs lining the walls. "What happened to them?" He shook his head solemnly. "No one really knows. Some say the woods took them. Others say they still roam, watching over the place where they vanished." "My car broke down near those woods," I said, feeling a shiver run down my spine. "I saw something, someone watching me." The diner man's face paled. "What did they look like?" "Just a shadowy figure," I admitted, feeling foolish, but it felt so real. He stepped back, glancing around the diner. "You should leave this place. Those woods aren't safe, especially with that locket. It has a history." Before I could ask what he meant, the bell over the door chimed again. A chilling rush of wind cut through the diner as a woman walked in, her face hidden beneath a heavy scarf. As she approached the counter, I felt the air change. Her eyes flicked to me, recognition flashed across her features. Then she smiled, and I could tell her smile held secrets I was not ready to hear. "I know why you're here," she said, her voice low and steady. My heart raced. This was no coincidence. Whatever was going on, I was about to find out. But at what cost? I took a step back, heat flushing my cheeks. "You do?" The woman smiled again, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "You're chasing shadows, but shadows can whisper." "Who are you?" I managed to ask, feeling the weight of her presence. "I'm just a friend," she said, pulling her scarf down just enough to reveal a scar on her cheek that twisted the corner of her mouth. "Name's Nora." The Dynaman shifted behind the counter, his eyes narrowing. "This isn't a place for stories, Nora." Ignoring him, she leaned in closer. "You have the locket, and it's drawn you in, hasn't it? Just like it did with the twins." "Twins?" I repeated, trying to piece together her words. "Yes, Evelyn and Clara, they lived and breathed this town. Their laughter echoed in these very walls. She gestured to the photos, eyes glinting with something between nostalgia and sorrow. But the woods took them. Fear knotted in my stomach. What do you mean? There are places where the veil between worlds is thin. The woods are one of them. They may not be lost forever. Her voice dropped to a whisper. There are others like you, those who found the locket. What happened to them? I asked, my voice trembling. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she glanced over her shoulder and a shadow flickered in her expression. You should tread carefully. Something has woken up, has woken. What do you mean, something? I pressed, aware of the weight of her words. Nora looked at me, her smile fading. There's a reason the diner man told you to leave, but you're stubborn. She reached out, brushing her fingers over the locket in my hand. The metal felt cold against my skin. Where can I find out more? I asked, desperation creeping into my tone. I had to understand this connection. The library, she said, her gaze steady. Ask for the old journals. They hide the truths that others fear to share. Why should I trust you? My heart raced, head spinning with uncertainty. Because we share the same curiosity. And the same fate if you're not careful. She stepped back, her presence somehow unsettling. But remember, knowing too much can be dangerous. Before I could respond, she turned and hurried to the door, leaving me reeling. The bell chimed again, and the diner man glared daggers at her retreating figure. Don't listen to her, he said, voice low. She's trouble, just like the tales of the locket. But it was too late. The urge to find the library blazed in me stronger than before. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Nora's warnings. I had already crossed the line. I needed to uncover the history, even if it meant digging into secrets that might be best left undisturbed. As I stepped outside, the wind whipped around me, and I shuddered. Somewhere in the chill, I felt the weight of unseen eyes watching. But I couldn't stop now. Questions burned inside me like a fire waiting to ignite as I climbed back into my car, eager to locate that library. Then I noticed something. A figure standing in the distance, half hidden among the trees. My breath caught as I squinted. The shadow seemed to linger there longer than it should have. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if I was ready for the answers I sought. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. The figure by the trees flickered in and out of focus as if playing tricks on my mind. I told myself it was just a trick of the light. But deep down, a chill ran through me. I had come too far into this mystery already. I couldn't turn back now. I forced my gaze back to the road as I pulled away from the diner, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me. The trees along the roadside seemed to lean closer, branches twisting like fingers reaching out. The library wasn't far from the diner. It stood alone on a quiet street, its facade old and weathered. I parked and stepped out into the biting cold. The air felt thick, almost electric. I shook my head, trying to clear the unease creeping over me. This was just a building filled with books. Nothing more. As I walked up the steps, the heavy wooden door creaked open at my touch. Inside, the warm air brushed against my skin, easing some of the tension. I was greeted by a small, elderly woman behind the front desk. Her eyes studied me, sharp and knowing. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice low and raspy. "I'm looking for old journals," I said, trying to keep my tone casual. "About strange happenings in the area." Her eyebrows rose slightly, but she motioned for me to follow her. We walked toward the back of the library, deep into the dimly lit aisles. Dust swirled in the air, capturing the light from the small windows. The silence was thick, almost oppressive. The woman stopped in front of a wall of bookshelves. "These might be what you seek," she said, pulling out a thick volume bound in worn leather. I reached for it, but she hesitated. "You should be careful with these. They hold truths that some would rather keep hidden. I nodded, a sense of foreboding settling in. I understand. She handed me the book, and the weight of it felt significant, as if it carried a history far too heavy for a mere volume. I thanked her and made my way to a nearby table, my heart racing with the thrill of discovery. As I flipped through the pages, phrases jumped out at me. The twins vanished. The woods wept, and the locket binds. My pulse quickened with each word. It was all connected. But then, another phrase caught my eye, a warning. Not all who seek the past return. I froze, my thoughts spiraling with Nora's earlier warning. Suddenly, I heard a rustling sound behind me. I turned quickly, instinctively reaching for the locket around my neck, but the library was empty. My breath hitched. Just as I was about to shake off the fear, something cold brushed against my skin. My heart raced as I turned back to the book, only to find a dark silhouette hovering in the periphery of my vision, near the rows of shelves. Before I could even form a scream, everything went black. The book dropped from my hands and panic surged as I realized I wasn't alone. Someone or something was here with me. Then I heard a whisper. "You shouldn't have come." I came to in darkness, confusion swirling around me like a thick fog. My eyes blinked, and I struggled to focus. The air was cold, and I sat on what felt like a hard wooden floor. The weight of the book pressed against my side, a reminder of where I had been moments before. Panic slithered up my spine as the memory of the whisper came crashing back. I pushed myself to stand and stumbled toward the nearest wall, my fingers brushing against the dusty surface. I held my breath, listening. There was only silence, thick and suffocating. I needed to find a light. My heart pounded in my chest, demanding clarity in the midst of chaos. I reached into my pocket, fumbling for my phone. It wasn't there. I cursed under my breath, a blend of fear and frustration washing over me. Then, a flicker of light caught my eye. I turned, squinting into the shadows. A soft glow emerged from a small window near the back of the library. With every step, anxiety clawed at me. The book in my hand felt heavier, like it might pull me back into the darkness if I wasn't careful. As I approached the light, the air grew colder. A chill crept over my skin and I wanted to turn back. But something drew me closer, an invisible thread tugging at me. I reached the window and peered out, gasping as I realized I was no longer inside the library. Instead, I stood in a clearing surrounded by trees that loomed ominously over me, their branches twisted into grotesque shapes. The sky was a shade of deep indigo, casting everything in an eerie hue. An unsettling sensation settled in my stomach. The journal had mentioned the woods weeping, but I had never imagined I would be standing in their midst. That's when I saw it. A figure sitting on a log by a dying fire. It was small, hunched, and shrouded in shadows. I strained to see its face, but all I could make out were hollow eyes fixed on me. A wave of dread washed over me, causing my knees to tremble. "Who are you?" I managed to call out, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure began to move, its body jerking as it rose. It pointed a skeletal finger toward me, and I felt an urge to run, but I was rooted in place. "You're too late," it rasped, the sound like dry leaves rustling in the wind. "They are waiting." A rush of images flooded my mind, faces I didn't recognize, eyes filled with desperation. The twins, the locket, the hidden truths, everything felt interwoven. I realized this was the source of my unease, the reason I had ventured into this unknown territory. Suddenly the figure lunged forward, and I turned to flee. My feet moved instinctively, racing through the thick underbrush, branches clawing at my skin. The forest felt alive, whispering warnings, urging me to escape. Breathless, I burst through the trees, but I wasn't sure where I was going. Just then I stumbled and fell, the weight of the book still clutched tight in my hands. It opened at the impact, and a strange wind swept through the pages. I caught glimpses of familiar phrases, the twins, the locket, and the haunting warning. Not all who seek the past return. I looked up, and the clearing was gone. In its place stood a wall of bookshelves, as if I had never left the library at all. My mind spun, grinding against the impossible, and then something caught my breath. A figure materialized at the end of the aisle, sharp shadows stretching and writhing around it. I recognized a familiar face, but my heart plummeted as I realized who it was. "Nora," I called out, dread pooling in my stomach. She didn't move. "Is that you?" The silence was shattered by a soft, mocking laugh. "You shouldn't have come," she echoed the whisper I'd heard before, and I felt the walls close in around me. Nora stepped closer, a crooked smile twisting her lips. I took a step back, shadows closing in around me. "This isn't real," I whispered to myself, but I wasn't convincing anyone. My back pressed against the wooden bookshelf, and I fought the urge to scream. "Why did you come back?" she asked, her voice dripping with mock concern. "Did you think it would be different this time?" I shook my head, desperate for clarity. "Different from what? What are you talking about?" My voice trembled, a mix of confusion and anger. "Everything you've learned, every question you thought you had answered, it's all just a game, and you're losing." She advanced, and I felt an icy grip tightening around my heart. Before I could answer, the shadows flared, brightening for a split second. I caught a glimpse of the book lying open at my feet, words swirling like they were alive. "The twins," I muttered, my heart racing. "Nora, where are they?" Just then the lights flickered, and in that blink of darkness, I heard soft whispers rising from the shelves. Words danced through my mind, scrambling in a chaotic rush. I felt lost, trapped between the familiar and unknown. "Listen closely," she said, her expression shifting from mockery to something darker. "You're not the only one looking for answers. They are here with you, and you might not like what you find." "Who are they?" I pressed, my throat dry. The walls seemed to pulse, breathing with a life of their own, as if eager for the next part of this twisted story. Suddenly, the whispers crescendoed into frantic shrieks. I dropped to my knees, covering my ears. "Stop it!" I screamed, but the sound only deepened my panic. I couldn't think. I could barely breathe. Nora knelt beside me, her laughter turning to a low croon. "This is your chance to finally know the truth. But remember, some truths are better left buried." Her eyes glowed with a dangerous flicker, and the walls of the library seemed to sway, as if echoing her words. In that moment I realized the shadows were becoming clearer, forming shapes that mirrored the faces I had desperately tried to forget. The twins. Directly ahead, a glimpse of glimmering locket caught my eye, half buried in the dust. I reached for it, but Nora's hand shot out, wrapping around my wrist. "You don't know what you're playing with. They won't let you leave without a price." A chilling breeze swept through the aisle, wreaking havoc on the dust motes hanging in the air. Panic surged within me again, but I pulled against her grip, determined. Yet as I stumbled back, the book slipped from my fingers, clattering to the floor. "Not that book!" Nora shrieked, eyes widening in horror. Heat flooded through the room. Before I could respond, fire erupted from the book's pages, consuming it in an angry blaze. Everything twisted around me, the library shadows warping and multiplying. I could feel the heat, the oppressive dread rising. I had to make a decision to escape this chaos, but which way was out? Just then, a voice, low and familiar, broke through the noise. "Help us," it pleaded, echoing around the room. "Help us find peace." I met Nora's eyes, then turned back to the fire. Whatever was happening, I was no longer just an observer. I was intertwined with the story, and the truth was calling louder than ever. The flames danced wildly, casting eerie shadows that twisted along the walls. I felt the heat licking at my skin, and panic twisted my stomach into knots. I couldn't stay here. I didn't know how much time I had until the fire spread beyond the confines of that book with the swirling words that somehow felt significant. "Nora," I gasped, still struggling against her grip. "What will happen if we don't stop it? We can't let them take us." But she only smiled wider, her eyes shining with something I couldn't decipher. "You're already too late to escape, my dear. The truth has been set ablaze, and it's hungry for more." With a surge of adrenaline, I yanked my arm free, surprising her momentarily. I dove toward the flames, instinct driving me. I had to know what the book held, what secrets it unleashed. As I got closer, I could see the words taking shape in the fire, forming sentences that begged to be read. "The twins are waiting." Heart pounding, I reached for the book's charred remains, the heat threatening to consume me. Just before my fingers made contact, a sudden force pushed me back, slamming me against the bookshelf once more. The air crackled with energy, and I realized the whispers had transformed, merging into one commanding voice. "Find us, or perish." I blinked, momentarily stunned. "What do you mean?" I shouted into the chaos, hoping for an answer. But all I got was silence, thick and pregnant with dread. Nora was standing tall now, the shadows around her shifting and elongating. "Do you feel that?" she murmured, glancing at the ceiling. "It's coming." Before I could respond, the ground trembled slightly beneath me like a warning. Dust rained from the shelves, and a shadowed figure emerged from the darkness at the far end of the aisle. I squinted, heart racing, and realized I recognized that silhouette. It was one of the twins. "Help us," the figure whispered again, voice trembling with urgency. "Finish what you started." Everything around me spun. The locket was also there, glinting at my feet, calling to me with memories I didn't know I had. I remembered their laughter, the feel of their hands in mine. I couldn't let them down again. Nora was now grinning, revealing sharp teeth. "Make your choice. Are you brave enough to confront what's waiting for you? Or will you run back to the safety of the past?" The flames roared louder, almost drowning out the pleading voices surrounding me. My pulse echoed in my ears. I had to decide. Either I faced the truth about the twins, or got lost in the consuming darkness. "Hold on!" I shouted, determined to breach the distance that seemed to stretch endlessly before me. I lunged for the figure, reaching out. "We'll find a way together." But as my fingers brushed against the air where they stood, everything went dark. The fire vanished, the whispers hushed, and then the floor gave way beneath me, plunging me into an abyss of nothingness. That's when I realized I wasn't just falling into darkness. I was falling toward an answer, a desperate grasp at understanding. I hit the ground with a dull thud, the breath whooshing from my lungs. Darkness wrapped around me like a tight cocoon. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing, ears ringing. This wasn't the library anymore. It felt altogether different, like I was in some liminal space where time and reality twisted in on themselves. The air was thick and charged. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling as it echoed back at me. There was no answer, just an oppressive silence that gnawed at my sanity. I felt a pressing sense of urgency, a force pulling me forward even as dread settled in my stomach. I took a step, and the ground beneath me shifted. Flickering lights appeared all around me, like stars judging me in this expanse of darkness. Shadows danced at the periphery of my vision. Whispers began to seep into the silence. They weren't just echoes. They were words, laced with intent. "Help us." I felt a chill ripple down my back. The words were pleading, desperate, but I didn't know how to help. "Who are you?" I shouted into the abyss, the question swallowed up by the darkness. "The ones you seek," the chorus of voices replied, this time more insistent. "You must choose." "Choose what?" I cried, frustration boiling to the surface. "Find us." With renewed determination, I pushed onward. Each step felt like traversing through molasses, slow and laborious. Glimmers of light began to pool into shapes, forms that sparked recognition. A blonde-haired girl in a winter coat, a tree with branches twisted like tortured limbs. The twins, I realized. The memory of their faces sent a jolt through me. "Evelyn, Clara," I called out, hope rising in my chest. A soft laughter, haunting and sweet, filled the air. The shadows seemed to warp around me, but I pressed on, chasing the flicker of their presence. "Where are you?" "Free us," they whispered, the yearning palpable. "Break the cycle." I stumbled, feeling the weight of the locket in my pocket pressing against me, a tether to something beyond my grasp. The flames from the library flared back to life in my mind, revealing the girls' smiles now tinged with a sadness that felt like a heavy burden. "This locket." My voice cracked, but I pressed forward, clutching it tightly. "It's holding you back, isn't it?" "Release us," they said, echoing around me. My heart raced as I clutched the locket. But how? By letting go, they urged, their voices intertwining in a mournful melody. I took a deep breath, the air thick with uncertainty. I had been drawn into this web of mystery, pulled by forces I didn't understand. But I could no longer ignore the looming truth. The twins were caught somewhere between this world and the next, and I was intertwined in their fate. Taking a deep breath, I held the locket up. "If this binds you, then I will let it go." The whispers intensified, drowning out any fears swimming in my head. I hesitated only a moment before letting it fall from my fingers. It clattered against the ground, and in an instant a rift of light burst open around me, illuminating the darkness with a blinding brilliance. "Thank you," came the soft reply, their voices now harmonizing. As I blinked against the light, I felt the air shift. Shadows began to clear around me, and I realized I wasn't alone. Faceless specters began to emerge, swirling around, twins, countless versions of them, all lost but free. I felt a sense of release, though unsure of what lay ahead. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the brightness faded, and I found myself back in the library. But it was different. The shelves were intact, the chaos had receded, and the air felt lighter. I was alone, but the sound of distant laughter lingered in my ears, tinged with relief. Yet as I stood in the calm aftermath, emotions churning within me, I couldn't shake the nagging thought. Had I really freed them? Or was this just another layer to an ever deeper mystery? I turned toward the library doors, which creaked open on their own. Sunlight bathed the world outside in golden hues. I stepped through, uncertainty swirling inside me. I paused, glancing back at the library. If the twins were truly free, then what had I unleashed? Though I left, the questions remained. Was it all in my head? What other truths lay hidden in the woods? As I stepped onto the path leading out of town, the echoes of the twins gently pulsated through me. A reminder of their laughter, their sorrow, and the lingering specter of the darkness we all can face. I knew then I could never truly leave those woods behind. Not completely. And somewhere in those woods, in the whispers of the trees, new stories were waiting to be told.